Hi, good evening. Welcome to 60 Minutes in Black America. My name is Leon Thomas. I'm with the Leon Thomas Group, and I'm filling in for Mike Haney this evening. Mike's taking a well-deserved day off, night off, and I'm happy to fill in for him. Mike, thank you for the opportunity to do so. Now, I want to make a big announcement now. Next week, Next week, 60 Minutes in Black America will not air at 7 o'clock. Next week, we're going to go live at 6 p.m. 6 p.m. Eastern. Mike will be back as your host, but the show next week, next Sunday, September 29th, will be at 6 p.m. 6 p.m. Eastern. So make sure, those of you that follow the show, that you watch it all the time. You want to be here 1 hour early. And I don't know if we're pulling clocks back or anything like that. It has nothing to do with it. Whatever time it is next week, it's 6 o'clock, 6 p.m. Eastern. That's the time for next week's 60 Minutes in Black America. On tonight's episode, we have a two-part show. On the first part of our show, we're going to talk with Sasha Thompson. She's the founder of the Equity Equation LLC. She's a DEI expert and coach. And then we're going to hear from four brothers that have formed a divine collaboration called Kings of Sports. And we'll hear about their mission and how they're going to go about helping students and student athletes achieve their potential. Let's bring on our first guest, Sasha Thompson. Hi, Sasha. How are you?
I'm doing well, Leon. How are you?
All is good. And I'm going to tell you one reason all is good. And that
Uh-oh.
is, at last check, the Ravens were up 28-6.
Yes, all is well in the world. But we had
All
12 minutes left the last time I looked, so we'll see. We shall
we're
see.
pretty good. Maybe some of our viewers will put in the comments and give us some score updates to let us know.
Yes.
Now, Sasha, when Mike Haney asked me if I would host tonight's show,
Hmm.
I said yes because Mike's a friend, and when your friends ask you to do something, what do you say?
Yeah.
You say yes, right? I did not look at my calendar where I have the Ravens schedule right on it. I just assumed, thought, didn't look that it was an evening. It was a 1 o'clock game.
Same.
You know.
Same. So when you asked me to do this, of course, Leon, sure, I will be there.
Yeah.
And yeah,
That,
just getting
that,
ready for this. I'm going back and forth. Okay,
yeah.
camera here. Okay, what's the score? Okay,
All
so
right.
we're good. We're in the same
You're
place.
good. And then I didn't realize the Ravens were playing at 4:25 or 4:30 until I asked someone else to be a guest on the show. And they're like, "No, the Ravens are playing." Like, oh man,
I
wow. So Mike,
appreciate their priorities.
yeah, yeah. So Mike's probably somewhere watching the show right now, going, "Yeah, I got you, Leon. I got you." That's
All
okay,
good.
Mike.
It
Yeah.
is all good.
So Sasha, you also have a show called DEI After Five. Tell us some about that.
I do. So DEI After Five started as a thought back in 2021, and we launched in 2022. It is a show that focuses on topics related to diversity, equity, and inclusion in all aspects. So any industry, things we may not necessarily think about as part of diversity, equity, and inclusion, or things that we need to make sure that we have top of mind as we are doing our inclusive equity and workplace work. Um, it really started as conversations that I was having with colleagues, like, "Hey, what are you doing after 5 o'clock?" But now it has really morphed into, DEI is what we do after 5 o'clock. It is the conversations we have in our workplaces, but also in our homes and in our community organizations. And so the show really has morphed. We just did our 100th episode in May. And so I think we're about 110, 120, somewhere in there right now. And just really excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, that is great. I'm really happy for the success you're having with your show. Another thing that I want to talk quickly about you before we get into some of the topics we're going to talk about.
Mhm.
You've been a contributor on Fox Soul, MSNBC, uh, the New York Times, or some other magazine. Give us the rundown.
Yeah.
Go ahead, brag on you just for a second. Give us the run. You've been all
Oh
over.
goodness.
Really happy for you. Go ahead, let us have it.
Yeah, so I have been, tapped as one of the experts in inclusive workplaces and really talk about topics that meet at the intersection of DEI and business. And so have been seen as a contributor on MSNBC when Tiffany Cross had her show. I was on there a couple of times. Been asked to do was on a panel on Fox Soul, as you said, New York Times, Newsweek. The podcast that we talked about earlier was named one of the top 5 podcasts for executives to listen to in Essence Magazine. So I am humbled by all of this, but I truly believe that the work is about making sure that everyone feels valued, seen, and connected, and doing so in a way where people can start connecting the dots to, oh, this just makes really good business sense, but it also makes us think about others in a way that we may not necessarily think about them.
Yeah, that is great. Again, congratulations on all the
Thank you.
successes and accolades and all that you're having now. We're really, really happy for you and proud of the work that you do. Now,
Thank you.
here's something that I'd like you to discuss and give us some kind of insider information here. The last 10 years or so, we've seen some companies say that they're committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and they've even hired individuals in those positions, in some cases, departments. When we hear someone has a DEI title, give us the good and bad. What does that really mean? Sometimes we see these titles, we hear about the
Yeah.
jobs, but we don't have a full understanding of what actually happens and how difficult that job can be. Enlighten us into that, please.
Yeah. So thank you for that question because I think there's so many misnomers out about what it means to be in a role that supports diversity, equity, and inclusion. So first of all, the first question that I often ask is, does it come with resources? Right? That tells you how committed the organization is to actually getting the work done. And so I want to take a step back too. When we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, there are 3 different things that happen with that. So diversity is about representation, right? Those are the numbers. Inclusion is, do people feel like they belong? Right? So what and how are you measuring that? Equity is the part that is often left out, and that is, how do you start to right wrongs? How do you make sure that people have the resources that they need, or how do you remove barriers that might be hindering people from being successful? Right, so when you have a role that's doing diversity, equity, and inclusion work, they're kind of doing all of those things. They're looking at things holistically, right? Are people that are from historically marginalized communities having access in ways that others may have access? Or are there barriers to that access? How do we start to remove and eliminate some of those barriers? Some of that is education, right? We don't know what we don't know. And so many of those roles may be doing that. Some of those roles, again, depending on where they are in the organization, could be around strategy. I am a firm believer that diversity, equity, and inclusion work does not belong in human resources. That could be a whole other conversation for another day.
Mhm.
But I believe that it really needs to sit under or be beside the chief operating officer, because it needs to be infused in everything that is happening internally and externally. How are you connecting with your clients or the communities that you serve or the industry that you're a part of? And so it really is a more holistic view of, how do we make sure that everyone feels valued, seen, heard, and connected to what your organization does? And so someone in that role really should have a more strategic view of it. If you see the DEI person, office, what have you, just doing activities and events, that's pretty superficial, right? That those are just the bare bones basics. How are they shifting and changing systems? How are they changing mindsets? How are they ensuring that there are no barriers to access? And that's the hard part. that is the work that people are starting to buck against right now.
Mhm. It's interesting you talked about that sometimes that position becomes event driven, right?
Mhm.
So I guess things like we're going to have a cultural day, right, or a food share day, things like that. Those are some of the events, right?
Right.
And I worked for companies that did that, and they really thought, oh, we're doing a great thing, we're inclusive, let's have all the Mexicans bring food and we're going to talk about their culture, and that was it,
That was it.
right?
Yeah.
There was nothing else done. Now, you mentioned that it's important for the DEI leader to report directly to the CEO of the company, right? Or
Mhm.
that company president, that they need to report to that number one person in the company. Otherwise, it seems to me that the DEI role would be hard because you have to sell so much up the line through so many people. Do I have that lined up right?
Yeah, I mean, and that's often what happens, right? You have to not only navigate the business proposition, right, for diversity, equity, and inclusion with your peers or others that may be in positions much higher than you, and also get the everyday folks that are in the organization on board as well, right, including the middle managers who are the actual ones they're making sure that the work is getting done. And so it really is, it becomes a political position in some ways, and that you have to know your audience and be able to speak in ways and in language that meets them where they are. Now, what is happening, you are starting to see this, these organizations pulling out, right, backing out of their DEI commitments. And I often question, were they really committed to begin with, right? Because, oh, we haven't seen this change, we haven't seen change since 2020 when we enacted all of these things. Change takes time, right? Nothing that happens within an organization that involves their culture changes in 3 years. Like, we all know that. We all know, even if there's a new president or a new leader that is in place, it takes time for the organization to change, right? You don't just pivot um, the ship in a very fast way. And so I question um, those organizations and their belief in, the actual work that needs to get done. The other thing is, if they are so swayed from doing their DEI work based on one or two voices that are in opposition, right, then that tells me that their spine is a little bit weak. Right. I was in a conference this weekend, and that was one of the speakers said that, right? That's the one way to tell if an organization is spineless, is when they back out on things that they said tied to their values. So again, you learn a lot about an organization based on how they're navigating these waters right now.
Yeah, great. Sasha, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back from break, I want to talk some about the struggles that those that are leaders in DEI roles have, and how you communicate with them, and how y'all share information together, and kind of
Mhm.
sometimes sit down kind of with the theme of your show, DEI after 5, and share the struggles, and talk about how those in those roles, how they should take care of themselves. So we're going to
Absolutely.
take a quick break. I'd like to talk about those things when we come back from this 1 minute break. You're watching 60 Minutes in Black America. My name is Leon Thomas. Our guest today is Sasha Thompson with the Equity Equation LLC. We'll be right back after this short break.
You're watching a special edition of 60 Minutes in Black America with guest host Leon Thomas. We're talking with Sasha Thompson, an inclusive culture curator and coach, and the host of the very popular DEI After 5 podcast.
Coming up later on 60 Minutes in Black America, we'll talk with 4 men who have come together to form a unique collaboration called Kings
Tell us
of
about
Sports.
the Kings of Sports. What is it y'all are? What is your mission?
Yeah, our mission for the King of Sports to inspire and empower student athletes to achieve their full potential academically, athletically, and in life as a whole.
And now, back to this special edition of 60 Minutes in Black America with guest host Leon Thomas.
Hey, welcome back to 60 Minutes in Black America. Just a reminder, as I mentioned at the top of the show, next week, 60 Minutes in Black America will not air at 7 p.m. Eastern. It will air at 6 o'clock, 6 p.m. Eastern. Sasha, do we change clocks? Do we fall back? Do you know
Not
when that
yet. I
happens?
think it's later in the year.
Later in the year. Okay, so that won't interfere with that. That's not a reason that folks won't be here on time. Our producers just flashed something on the screen. I think something about a score. What happened there?
Yes,
Oh
it's
no,
28-18. I just got the notification with 7 minutes
18
left.
with
So,
7 minutes remaining. I'm feeling good about the Ravens. They're going to be okay. They're going to be all right. So Sasha, please help us understand this, that some of the struggles that DEI professionals, those that work in companies, some of the struggles that they have, and how do y'all talk to each other about this? How do you communicate? How do you help each other navigate some of the difficulties that have to be prevalent in that role?
yeah, so I started at the top when I was talking about the podcast, and DEI after five. And it truly started when I was working in corporate in a DEI role. And I would call up my friends and colleagues that were in similar roles at other places and say, "What are you doing after 5 o'clock?" Like
Uh,
I need to just vent and just get all this stuff out. And so that's where I think that happens naturally for a lot of people is you find your tribe, you find your village, of folks that kind of do this work and not just commiserate together, but brainstorm, get ideas from each other. I still get lots of emails and phone calls from folks, text messages like, "Hey, I'm dealing with something, can we just chat?" And so I know other people that do that as well too. So community is very important. One of the reasons why I asked the question earlier or stated the question earlier around resources is that so many of the people that are doing this work are what I call the lonely onlys. They are the only one in their organization trying to shift this huge ship, right? Change the culture. And so it can be very frustrating. Um, it can be invigorating in some ways as well, depending on the organization, but it can be exhausting. And so, one of the things that I think is so important and why I have built it into DEI After Five, the last question I always ask my guest is, what do you do to fill your cup? What are the things that you do for you? Because I think it's so important that we honor the fact that self care is critical in doing this work. And so, I want to make sure that people know it looks different for everyone. It may look different every single day, but it's something that you need to keep in mind. And so it's one of the reasons why one of the first projects that I did when I started the equity equation was created a journal, 60 Days to Self-Care for DEI Practitioners. And it really is a very basic journal in giving you one thing that you could focus on for that day, to really see if it's something that resonates with you, or if it's something, like I need to keep this in my repertoire, right? So it helps you kind of focus in and hone in on those things because it is so critical. And I know from when I was in house, right, as a practitioner, what stress was doing to me and in my body. And so I was very intentional in moving out of that situation and starting my own to make sure that I talk about self care and being able to step away from the work, especially if you are advocating for groups that include yourself, right? Because we're so connected to the work. And so I think that that is a critical piece of this puzzle.
Mhm. And Sasha, on that note, what do you do for you? What do you do for your self-care? How do you manage your stress in the role that you're in? You're working with many companies, you're working with individuals and trying to help them become more inclusive. How do you manage it? What works for you? How do you
Yeah.
fill your cup?
How do I fill my cup? So it's morphed over the years and it's still morphing. But right now, one of the things that I do is I don't take calls before 9 o'clock in the morning. And part of that is I'm not a morning person and I want to show up for my clients and anyone else in my best space. And so that gives me time to just really get myself together, think about, how I want to work on my day. Another thing is I don't do client calls, or I rarely do client calls on Fridays. And part of that is those are my self-care days where I will go to the spa or go, get a massage or something, or just shut down and just watch television or read a book or do something that's just for me, but I'm very intentional about that. The other thing is twice a week, I do a stretch and tone class at 7 in the morning. Mind you, I said I'm not a morning person, right?
Mm,
So, but I have found when I do that class, I love the community. I love the camaraderie
yeah.
in that group. It's very motivating. And when I start my day that way, very intentional with them, it just permeates throughout the rest of my day. And so those are some of the things that I do. But also, spending time with my family and just, laughing. We like watching reruns of The Neighborhood, reruns of Psych, all of these little shows that we love to just laugh at. We do that a lot. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, those are some of those things that I do.
Yeah. Yeah. Right on. For me, it's racquetball. And as you know, I coach racquetball, but I also play.
Yeah.
And so the playing is my fill the cup time, right? That's what
Yeah.
I do, and I really enjoy that. And I know what you mean about that early morning, also, right? There's something about that early morning time that does it. We have someone that works in our company at the Leon Thomas Group that will not take phone calls before 10 a.m. Yeah,
I'm
just
slowly getting there, but
won't do it.
right
Just
now it's
won't
9.
do it.
Yeah.
And sometimes he'll return a text, but phone calls, forget it. It's not happening. But we all had to recognize that that's what he needs, right? And so we
Yeah.
have to respect that. Everyone has their own thing that's going to work for them. So Sasha,
Absolutely.
you mentioned that a lot of companies now are backing away from commitments that they made in 2020, that
Hmm.
DEI and inclusion is going to be a part of our culture. They're backing away from it, and even now there are some state laws that say that are against that.
Yeah.
What's at risk for companies that make that decision, that say we're not going to support these efforts anymore? Give us the rundown on everything that's at risk there.
Yeah, it's interesting. I may not be able to hit with all of the
Mm,
ways that it impacts, but a few things that I know for sure. Our workforces are becoming more and more diverse, which starts with age diversity. When you look at it, there are now 5 generations in the workplace. And one of the sessions that I'm often asked to do is around generational diversity in the workplace, right? Inclusive communication across generations. Um, that's not going away, right? You cannot just not deal with that. What's also happening as a piece of that is older generations are staying in the workplace longer and younger generations are coming in droves, but not that they're just coming in droves. They have very high expectations of organizations having some type of diversity, equity, and inclusion, not just program, but how it's permeated into the organization. Is it reflected in your benefits? All of those things. And so even if the programming goes away, the actual work will still need to happen because the workforce will continue to be diverse. The other thing that I was mentioning this to a group last week was when we started dealing with COVID-19, one of the challenges that organizations said when they were, people with disabilities were coming into the workforce was, oh, we can't accommodate you. COVID-19 totally debunked that, right? Because everybody had to be accommodated at that point. So
mhm,
now what is happening with this being people being forced to go back into the office, all of those accommodations still need to be put in place. When you look at the population of those that have disabilities, right, it's twice as likely for them to be unemployed. So now you're thinking about, okay, well, we have this aging workforce, we have folks that have very high expectations, and now we also have the ability to provide some of these technological accommodations, right? How do we put all of this together? And oftentimes that goes beyond HR, right? So you're talking about accommodations and compliance and all of these other pieces, and add on to that the human element of all of these things. And so DEI, it may not be called DEI, but some iteration of it will have to continue in these organizations. Even those that said that they're backing out, they're quickly finding out that they need to do something because Pandora's box has been opened.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, it's when I follow some companies, many companies on LinkedIn, and as proud as they seemed to be 4 and 5 years ago, making announcements about their new culture, they
Mhm,
seem to be equally as proud to make announcements to say we're not going to do this anymore. And
mhm.
I'm like, wait a minute. Now, just 4 years ago, this was something that you were fully committed to. I mean, I have even some of the CEOs and chairmen's videos that talked about this is a way we will do business forever. This is the new us. And now 4 years, like you talked about, the spine is just not
Weak.
strong.
It's
It's a
weak.
weak spine.
But I also think that that speaks volumes to what I said around diversity, equity, and inclusion work is internal and external. Many of them are looking at their internal policies. They're not necessarily thinking of how is this impacting their client base or their customers that they serve or the industry that they serve, right? So when I think about the ones that were very quick to say, "Oh, we're not doing this." Okay, well, let's look at where their client and customer base is and who they are, and what impact does that make, right? So I'll
Mhm.
use Harley Davidson for example. Historically, right, their client base has been middle-aged, older white men, but they do have some programs for women. They do have some programs for people of color, right? That are into Harley Davidson. And so what I think what was short-sighted in this is how are they now ostracizing those clients and those customers? Because
Mhm.
if you're not investing in me, then why should I invest in you? And so these are major purchases, right? A Harley is not cheap. So people, I think what's starting to happen now is people are like, okay, where else can I take my dollars that will support people like me? Right. I learned this weekend that the disability community globally is like the buying power is over $1 trillion.
Wow.
So if you're not doing diversity, equity, and inclusion, what are you leaving? Oh Lord, leaving on the table.
Ah,
No, don't do this to me.
and
Okay.
I don't think that "Oh Lord" was about what you're leaving on the table.
No.
I think it's about the comment that's on the screen now. What?
Oh,
Wow.
yeah. I need to fill my cup with not water at this
I
point.
hear you. I
Um,
hear you. Yeah, let's get that off the screen. Wow. Wow. Yeah. So, Sasha, I hope some folks want to get in touch with you. I'm sure they will. W- Give us your email address, please. So, how
yeah.
can
So
folks get in touch with you?
absolutely, the best way to contact me is Sasha, Sacha, at theequityequationllc.com. That's my email address. Or you can find me on LinkedIn, Sasha Thompson. You can go to the equityequationllc.com as well and fill out our contact form. And on social media, we are the Equity Equation. So any of those places, you will be able to reach me.
And they can find your podcast. So it's a webcast and podcast. They can find you on YouTube. Is that
Yes.
the Equity Equation? Is that what they search for on
So
YouTube?
actually, there it's DEI after five
DEI after five. Okay.
on YouTube. Yep,
All right. And on podcast platforms, what's the
DEI
search
after
number?
five. Yep. So just type
DEI
that
after
in, and you
five.
could find it. I think we're now on 20 different podcast platforms. So,
And you've had how many downloads of your podcast?
oh gosh. I
It's,
think when I looked recently, it was close to 24,000 downloads.
yeah, yeah, I thought it was a high number. Yeah, right on. Good for you.
Yeah,
Congratulations to you.
thank
Folks, if you
you.
weren't here for the early part of the show, you should actually roll back to the beginning so you can hear the credibility that Sasha has in the DEI and inclusion world. It's been a host, been a panelist on Fox Soul, MSNBC, has been highlighted in the New York Times and other publications. We have someone that's real, that's doing the real work here. So, Sasha, we applaud you and thank you so much for being here on 60 Minutes in Black America. And I'm going to that score. Hopefully, that score the Ravens have scored since then. We'll figure that out later. But anyway, Sasha, thank you so much for being with us here on
Thank you for
60 Minutes
having
in
me.
Black
It's been a
America.
pleasure. Thank you so
Great,
much.
thank you. And folks, we're going to be back for the second half of 60 Minutes in Black America in just 1 minute. But before we go to our next break, I want to remind you that next week, 60 Minutes in Black America will air at 6 p.m., 6 p.m. Eastern, right here, wherever you're watching it now. You can watch it next week, but not at 7 o'clock. You're going to have to watch it at 6 o'clock. There's a time change for tomorrow, for next next Sunday, a time change for next Sunday. And we're going to be back with the second part of 60 Minutes in Black America, where we're going to talk see a pre-recorded interview with five brothers who have started a collaboration called Kings of Sports. You're going to love what they're doing. We'll be right back after this short commercial break.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of 60 Minutes in Black America, hosted by Mike Haney. Be sure to watch Mike's other show, Wake Up Baltimore, each Monday at 7:30 a.m. Wake up to music by DJ Dice. Get a recap of the weekend's Orioles, Ravens, and local college sports scene. Hear about upcoming events, and most importantly, wake up to be informed of all the great things that are happening in Baltimore. To watch Wake Up Baltimore, subscribe to the Mike Haney YouTube channel or search Wake Up Baltimore on Facebook. Again, Wake Up Baltimore airs each Monday at 7:30 a.m. Wake up to all the great things happening in Baltimore.
Welcome back
Tell
to
us about
60
the
Minutes
Kings of
in
Sport.
Black America. Welcome back to 60 Minutes in Black America. I'm Leon Thomas, the guest host tonight for Mike Haney. Mike, thank you for the opportunity to host your show. I really appreciate the confidence in allowing me to do this. Thank you, Mike. Again, remember next week, 6 o'clock, not 7 o'clock, for 60 Minutes in Black America. And as you heard in that ad that led into me coming back on, Mike has another show called Wake Up Baltimore. It's a hot show. It's the hottest morning show in Baltimore. You want to make sure you watch that, and you can find it by going to YouTube and searching Mike Haney, or you can go to Facebook by searching Wake Up Baltimore. You can also listen to Wake Up Baltimore and 60 Minutes in Black America on the Leon Thomas Group Radio Network. It's an open source scheduling platform, which means that shows don't run at a specific time. They run over and over all the different times a day. So you will be able to hear Wake Up Baltimore and 60 Minutes in Black America at least 12 times during each 7 day period due to our unique open scheduling format. To get to the show, you go to theleonthomasgroup.com and there's a button right at the top menu that says Listen Live. We now are going to show you a pre recorded interview with four men who have started Kings of Sports. In the interview, you hear about their mission. These are all well educated men who have different backgrounds in sports and sports education. And what they want to do is spread knowledge, information, and be available for mentorship to sports athletes and those that are just students all over the country. Let's run that interview now.
That y'all are. What is your mission?
Yeah, our mission for the King Sports to inspire and empower student athletes to achieve their full potential academically, athletically, and in life as a whole. So for me, my passions are youth, students, and sports. Like Dr. AJ said, our foundations is Christ. And so what we want to do is kind of go throughout the nation and the country to impact every youth and every student athlete that we possibly can.
Beat up. So no, we're serious about this. This is not, we're not playing around. This is serious. We're building a foundation because we know this is something that is absolutely needed.
I love it when good things happen. I love it when collaborations happen that are going to lead to great things. And that's what we're here tonight to talk about, a unique collaboration that's been formed that are going to do some great things in this country and worldwide. I'm so excited that we're here tonight to announce Kings of Sports. Kings of Sports. And we're going to bring all four of the Kings of Sports on stage, onto the screen, and we're going to talk to them about Kings of Sports, what their goals are, what the mission is, and how they all met. Let's bring them on now. Let's bring on Bodine Sanders. Let's bring on Dr. AJ Anderson, Dr. Cedric Brown, and Dr. Timothy Felton. Gentlemen, we're here to talk about the Kings of Sports. Congratulations to you on doing this. Let's start with you, Dr. Brown. How did this all happen? First of all, don't get into what you're going to do. Tell us how it happened. How did y'all meet? How does all this come together?
It's I think that it happened because I jokingly say that LinkedIn is God's social media channel, right? Because I met Dr. Felton through LinkedIn, just like I met you, Leon, through LinkedIn. And, it was because of things that I had said pertaining to faith. And that's how we got together. And then Dr. Felton knew, I call him Big Brother Bo, Bodine Sanders, and knew him. And then I met Dr. AJ Anderson through you. So, and there was no way that we should have analytically known one another. And, God brought us together. And that's why, we're the Kings of Sports, and it's a divine collaboration.
Now, you're right. If you were to look at it analytically in terms of who we were connected with, and we're talking about the two of us meeting.
Yes, sir.
It was your post that somehow I saw it that said, I want to thank my Savior,
my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Yes, sir.
For what has just happened. Right. And I reached out to you. Then at the same time, someone that I worked with a long time ago, Coach Matt Furjanic, introduced me to Dr. AJ Anderson. So Dr. Felton, you take it from there. So tell us, how did all this come together? Continue on with that. And we're going to come to everyone with that. Then we're going to get into what your mission is. Dr. Felton.
Yeah, like Dr. said, I met Bodine Sanders first through LinkedIn, and we connected and we started conversating concerning about going out doing public speaking engagements. And from that point, what he did was set out to reach out to different, athletic directors throughout the country. And Dr. Said was one of the athletic directors that he reached out to when he was at his former college where he, was the AD at. During that time, he reached out. He didn't hear anything back, because, athletic directors are, extremely busy throughout the season. He didn't hear back from him. I saw a post, like Dr. Said had mentioned before, that he had posted on LinkedIn. I commented on the post. Dr. Said responded back. He put out his information, his number, we connected. And at this time, he had just taken a new position where he's currently working at the university now as an athletic director. But on his way to his new assignment, we may have talked for maybe an hour about just collaborating. You know, I told him about the situation with Bodine had, you know, reached out to him. He remembered the situation, but, you know, what we said now is that he kind of ghosts Brother Bodine during that time. But we talked going as he was going up to his new university. And in that hour, like I said, it wasn't just about, you know, sports within itself, but it was about a divine collaboration and connection. Then, like I said, Dr. AJ, like I said, ended up coming into the fold. And as we talked, you know, throughout that hour, we kind of came up with the name of Kings of Sports, which kind of derived off of the Kings of Comedy. And at that time, like I said, Dr. Said was like, yeah, I can be Steve, I can host. You know, you from St. Louis, you're going to be Cedric. And then AJ is going to be D.L. Hughley. And then Bodine Sanders is going to be Bernie Mac. He's going to close us out. And I said, yeah, that sounds great. You know what I mean? So we ended up establishing, you know, LLC based off of, you know, what we collaborated with. And like I said, since that time, like I said, I do think, like I said, it's a great divine collaboration between four outstanding Black men that truly loves not only the game of sports, but also love youth and student athletes as well.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. Now, Mr. Saunders, you take it from there, and then we'll come to Dr. Anderson. So you've got Cedric, and there's some ghosting or something going on. Y'all handle that, right? But that's going on, and so then all of this happens. What were your thoughts about what everyone wanted to do and the collaboration? Mr. Saunders, go ahead.
Well, once we all got together and, you know, introduced ourselves and got together via Zoom call, phone calls, I mean, you can feel it. You know, you can read the room. You know, the energy was there, the vibe was there, and so it's just a matter of, okay, how we feel about it. We feel great about it. Okay, let's talk about what's important to us. Let's talk about the foundation. Let's talk about where we see, what vision do we have? What is the need out in the community regarding students and student athletes, right? I even altered what I'm doing in terms of spending time on high school campuses. I became an educator just because I wanted to get firsthand the experience what was happening on that level, because these three guys who all are, you know, high academic achievers, they're on campuses every day. So I'm not on a college campus. So I said, what's the easiest way for me to get some of that experience? So it just all works out. I mean, it's in our gut. We feel it. And here we are.
All right. And Dr. Anderson. Now, the one thing is, we know you're from Pittsburgh, and the producer, Dr. Jay Rasenko, is not going to hold that against you. And you are a professor at Bowie State University, so you're in this also. What are your thoughts about how it came together and what y'all going to do? Then we'll talk about what your mission is.
No, I'll tell you, it was awesome. When I moved down here into Maryland about 2.5 years ago, and my old high school basketball coach, Matt Frajanic, he was my high school coach at Woodland Hills when I was there. And I reached out to him, told him I was down here. And honestly, the first thing he did was, here, listen, I'm going to give you some names of some people down here, some good folks. And Leon, you were probably the first guy that Coach Frajanic gave me.
Coach Frajanic is pretty smart.
Listen,
I'm just saying, he's a smart man to tell you to connect with me. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, no, and so we connected, and Coach Frajanic has been just a big influence on me. And I said, we actually grew up in Rankin is the town that we actually grew up at in Pittsburgh. And once he got me connected with you, then, it was great from there, because then that's when I got connected with Sid, and then I got through Sid, you and Sid, then that's how I was able to meet Bo and Dr. Felton. So it's been great. I'm excited about this opportunity. 4 brothers, all God-fearing men, it's exciting. I love to just our conversations are great. And, we're laughing, we're having a good time, but we all are passionate about what we do. So I'm excited and I'm ready to go.
Tell us about the Kings of Sports. What is it what is your mission?
Yeah, our mission for the Kings of Sports to inspire and empower student athletes to achieve their full potential academically, athletically, and in life as a whole. So for me, my passions are youth, students, and sports. Like Dr. AJ said, our foundations is Christ. And so what we want to do is kind of go throughout the nation and the country to impact every youth and every student athlete that we possibly can.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Saunders, you can go ahead and talk some more about what it is that you want to do and how you plan on doing it.
Well, I couldn't have said it any better. Each of us have a special skill and talent, and we want to share that experience with not just student athletes, students as well. We all know that there are issues happening on the K through 12, but we want to focus on middle school and high school and then college. And we just want to empower the kids. How do you help them? You share information. I reached out to AJ regarding a little cousin of mine who needed some mentorship. It got to the point where he wasn't listening to me anymore. And I was starting to get frustrated. And, all of a sudden, the Lord brings AJ into my life, and I'm able to make that phone call, and AJ saying, no, I got it. So AJ spent his quality time helping my cousin, my young cousin. His mother was frustrated, and AJ reached down there into Florida and put her at ease. She's now more comfortable and more happy with her son's attitude, his energy, right? AJ got him focused, and that's what we're trying to do, right? And each of these incredible men have done that. They continue to do that today. And so that's all we want to do. We just want to share our experiences to help folks, because, that's our way of getting it done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Dr. Anderson, so you just heard and you experienced it, Mr. Sanders, saying that you helped a family member. You got to feel good when you're helping people, right?
Yeah, and it's about giving back too. I didn't get here by myself. I've had plenty of folks. My faith has been strong. So I want to be able to give back through the experiences, through the knowledge that I have gained over time, good and bad experiences. I just want to be able to serve others. And that's what it comes down to, is we all have a common goal. And if we can give back and are able to impact people in a positive way, young people in a positive way, then that will accomplish our goals.
Mm-hmm. And Dr. Anderson, when we talk about giving back and impact, you work in college athletics. Yes. What are some of the needs? Dr. Anderson and Dr. Brown, I want to hear from both of you. Let's go to Dr. Brown first on this. Both of you are on college campuses. Dr. Brown, you're working in athletics. Dr. Anderson, you are a professor of sport management, and you're working with folks that are in athletics, right? That are in your
Yes.
classes. Dr. Brown, what are some of the needs that you see from that students need, but particularly student athletes?
Yes, sir. It's entrenched and it centers on the 5 pillars that we came up with collaboratively: relationships, development, student success, mental health, and athlete identity. And we do a Zoom every Sunday evening just to kind of connect with each other and talk about the business and talk about different things that we're looking to do. But the one thing that is central in all of us is, like you said, how can we help? And the anecdotes that we have, myself as a Division I student athlete, most of us as student athletes, and in various sports and various different situations that we came up in. They're separate, but there's a commonality in all of it, right? And it was that carrot that they dangled in front of us, the athletics, and then they brought us in, showed us how to be successful student athletes, and then we pay it forward, right? That's one of my favorite movies, with Bruce Willis, and it's being paid forward because somebody poured into us, and now we can pour into others. And that's the one thing that I really admire about the Kings, because each one of us have a different story that is similar that we can all relate to, and then we can all help student athletes, and it doesn't matter race, color, because we're trying to reach everyone, right? We're trying to, we talk about being diverse, we talk about equity, because it doesn't matter our boys, our girls, our men, our women. We're trying to reach everyone, right? And then we're trying to make sure that everybody is included in this vision that we have, right? The mission, as he said, we're trying to inspire and empower students and student athletes alike. And and so the Kings of Sports, we're coming to a city near you, and anyone that has an opportunity to touch a administrator or a youth organization, youth organizer, a church organizer that wants us to come into their city and give them the perspective that we have from sport management, from radio hosts, from authors, because Dr. Felton has his own library. He's written so many books, and so we just want to give back, and we want to find a way to encourage and empower young people, and let them know that it's okay, right? It's okay. That day you get up and you don't feel well, you don't feel like going to school, you don't feel like doing the work. We're going to come to the city and sit down and talk to you, and hopefully we get our sponsors to feed them as well. You get a 90-minute, 2-hour conversation with us, feed them, and then send them home with some nuggets that they can use to mature and grow in their time. So
right on. I like it. Now, will you also have conversations and presentations virtually, or is it only in person? Will you do virtually as well?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Great.
We will.
I'm looking forward to that starting to happen. Now, wait a minute now. Dr. Felton, he said you got a library. He said you got a library of books. Now, we have some of them. I mean, there's the latest book right there.
Absolutely.
Right? There's your latest book. And if you scan that code, it's going to take you to that electronic library. Y'all, I almost said library, but
oh my goodness.
Almost said it. It's going to take you.
This is an educational show, Leon.
So that's y'all weren't supposed to hear the part that I said I almost said it. But now that I did, scan the code, and you will be taken to all of Dr. Felton's publications there. So If you're watching a replay, you're watching a recording, hit the pause, hit stop now, and scan it. Take your, what if you're on a phone, you might ask? Okay, you could go to Amazon and just Google Dr. Felton, it'll show up there too. So you don't have an excuse, right? But we have some other works here. Mr. Bodine Sanders, here's his book right here, Race Against Race. And what's the subtitle there, Mr. Sanders?
My Journey of Diversity and Inclusion Through Sports. I write about how team sports is a great way to build relationships. It is a positive book, inspirational book. And as I was taught growing up in the South, you catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar.
All right, right on. Excuse me, Dr. Anderson. Dr. Anderson, you are a professor at Bowie State University. I've seen you in action in the classroom because you've invited me down to be a speaker. But one of the things I want to talk about you specifically, then we'll get to Dr. Brown's book, is the relationship you have with your students, right? I've seen it just firsthand, but I can only imagine the impact you're having with students, and this is going to be just a natural extension for what you do, right?
Yeah, no. When I took the job here, I really wanted to focus on the impact. Coming to Bowie State, which is an HBCU, for those that do not know, I really passionate what I do. So I worked in sports for a long time, and for me to be able to teach people in the classroom, teach young people in the classroom about working in sports, about the love of sports, this is what I'm passionate about. And I always tell students, I'm gonna keep it real with you, and that's something that I think that they respect, because I'm gonna give them that tough love. I always say that's some part of the football coach in me. And I'm really tough on them, but at the end of the day, I tell them, like, you're not going to get a professor that cares more than I do. Mm-hmm. And that's why I really try to work with them as much as possible. And being a professor, I think back to my days when I was in college, and I really just I wanted to be different. I want to stand out. How can I stand out as a professor here? So I'm not going to read off slides for 50 minutes or an hour and 15 minutes. So I try to be more engaging with our students. We bring in guest speakers like yourself, and I want to engage with them. Our students, we take trips. We work on partnerships. So we have I got partnerships with the Washington Commanders right now, the Brooklyn Nets. And these are opportunities I'm trying to create for our students, where when I was a student, I didn't have these opportunities. So I want to be able to provide our students with an opportunity that they can excel. So if they tell me their freshman year they want to be a sports agent or they want to be a coach, I'll tell them from the start is, I'm here to support you. Use me as a resource, and we're going to go. But you got to work at it, though. So
we see a comment about you here from Mark Burke. Do you know Mark, or is that somebody you told to put their name down as Mark? Do you really know him? You know Mark?
No, it's like a brother.
Nice comment there. I like it. This is very, very nice of him to make that comment about you. Nice. Dr. Brown, let's talk some about your book. And Dr. Felton, we didn't get a chance to talk about your book. We just talked about that you have it because you got like a whole bunch of them. We're going to go back and talk about your book as well. So Dr. Brown, tell us about your book.
Well, it was inspired by Dr. Felton. He inspired me to put the book together. And it's, how Black men overcome racial barriers in the status quo in NCAA institutions. I've had the honor and been blessed to work in predominantly white institutions. And in that, it has been, blessings and challenges. And I wanted to write something positive, as Big Brother Bo alluded to in his book. I wanted to write something positive about the influences that helped be successful. So in the book, I did semi-structured interviews with several Power 5 directors of athletics of color, men, and just ask them a bunch of questions. And just, had conversations like we were sitting in the barbershop. And those of you who grew up in communities, barbershops were very important to the growth and the maturation of young men in community, right? And in the Black community. So doing that led me to find out that the most important thing for them, even whether the racial barriers were perceived or real, the one common factor that came through all of them was role models, and how those role models help to influence their maturation in their career, right? And then the expectations that those role models had, and then if there were racial barriers, how can we positively overcome those barriers and get through those? And so it's a blessing that I was able to put it together. And again, because of Dr. Felton, I put that book together, and it is on Amazon.com. And if you are watching this in a tape delay, that QR code, you click that QR code and you can go to the book. It's it's an easy read. There's some technical things in it, but basically there's a lot of anecdotes and experiences by seasoned professionals that really got things done at the highest level in intercollegiate athletics. And I wanted to share that with audiences to read.
Right on. Thank you for that. And Dr. Felton, tell us about your latest book. Tell us about Black Boys Matter.
Yes, like I said, Black Boys Matter was released during Black History Month this past February. Like I said, my past experience, I was a juvenile officer, currently retired from that, from doing that for 20 years. But me and one of my coworkers, Taryn Coleman, sat down a few months ago, and we started putting together kind of like an outline and framework to come up with the Black Boys Matter book, which is kind of take you through different challenges, triumphs that Black boys may face, whether it's through the educational system, the juvenile justice system. I also touch on absent fathers being not in the home, but one of the biggest component of the book is the Black perspective chapter, which is chapter 5, which Dr. AJ, Dr. Cedric, and Bodine Sanders were contributing writers to that particular chapter. And then that chapter pretty much spells out where we given Black perspectives from different professional perspectives. So we have Bodine is a Black entrepreneur. He wrote a chapter on that. Dr. Cedric is an athletic director, so he wrote from the athletic perspective. AJ wrote from a coaching perspective, but I have therapists, social workers, counselors, principals, barbers, parents, Black boys themselves, actually writing from their perspectives to kind of shed a light on some of the things that, like I said, Black boys go through in this society.
So with what you just talked about in that one chapter, and all of the expertise that is here in so many different disciplines that are connected, y'all have set yourselves up. This is going to be a grand slam for so many people. You're going to change lives. Do y'all really see that? Or am I the first person telling you that you're going to have some serious impact on lives?
No, we believe it because it's a divine collaboration, right? It is sanctioned by God that we came together, and the abilities and the skills that He's allowed us to have, right? We're going to use those skills and abilities to help others and glorify Him at the same time. So no, it's not a surprise. It's not a surprise at all.
Leon, there have been nights where we are burning fumes, like we've got nothing left in the tank, and we're on the Zoom call hashing it out, going over step by step, because we've had a 14, 16, 18-hour day, and we'll meet up. So no, we're serious about this. This is not We're not playing around. This is serious. We're building a foundation because we know this is something that is absolutely needed.
Being here, seriously, wishing y'all just great success.
Coming to a city near you. KOS.
Wait a minute. Let's show everybody's contact information. I want to make sure that our audience knows how they can get in touch with you. So I'm going to ask our producer just to run it all through to show everyone's contact information. Let's start with, there's Dr. Brown. You can reach him at his website, cedricmbrown.org. Let's go ahead, keep them rolling through. Dr. AJ Anderson, there's his email, drajanderson@gmail.com. Dr. Felton, tfelton63@gmail.com. And Sanders Bodine at gmail.com, and his website, o-deansanders.com.
And also, Leon, I don't know if we have it on a banner, but Nuff said NUFFCED215@gmail.com. You can reach all of us on our Gmail accounts.
All right, give it to me again, please, Dr. Brown. I'll put it in right now so everyone can see it. That would be Nuff
NUFFCED215@gmail.com.
All right, here it is, folks. You can be able to see it right here. There it is.
Yes, sir. You can reach all of us on our Gmail right now on our Gmail, and then down the road we'll have one that is linked to Kings of Sports LLC. So coming to a city near you.
Before we go, thank you, Kings of Sports, for being with us here tonight.
We appreciate you, Leon. Thank you, man.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching this edition of 60 Minutes in Black America. I'm Leon Thomas, filling in for host Mike Haney. Mike took the night off, well-deserved time away from the show. Mike will be back next week. And again, next week, 60 Minutes in Black America starts at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. I want to thank our guest on tonight's show, Sasha Thompson with the Equity Equation LLC, and all the members of Kings of Sports, Dr. Cedric Brown, Dr. Tim Felton, Dr. AJ Anderson, and Mr. Bodine Sanders. Thank you for participating in that pre-recorded interview. And to my friend Mike Haney, thank you for the opportunity to host 60 Minutes in Black America. I've enjoyed my time here. Thank you for entrusting me to hold your seat while you are away. Also want to remind you to check out Wake Up Baltimore, Mike's other show. Wake Up Baltimore airs every Monday at 7:30 p.m. We want you to wake up to all the good things that are happening in Baltimore. That's Wake Up Baltimore every Monday at 7:30 a.m. Again, thanks for watching 60 Minutes in Black America. I'm Leon Thomas, wishing you a good night. Take care, everybody.